Hello, my name is Laura Schneider, and I'm here to tell you about the Costa Rican experience, a field course that I took through the University of Colorado, Denver. The title of the course was Sustainability and Resource Management, and it was hosted by Dr. Rafael Moreno Sanchez and Dr. Frederick Chambers. Some of the objectives of the course was to see another country's approach to sustainable development outside of the United States, and also to observe their different environmental issues that they're faced with, including deforestation, climate change, loss of biodiversity, and pollution from its largest city in San Jose. And then also to understand the importance of systems thinking and to see how there's three different factors usually that come into an issue, including social, economic, and environmental issues, and how that affects the decisions that are made for Costa Rica. So the locations that we visited in Costa Rica, we started off in San Jose and then headed up to Puerto Viejo, which is where the La Selva Biological Research Station is located. And then we headed over to La Fortuna to witness the man-made lake called Lake Arenal. And then we headed over to Brasilito to study ecotourism in the coastal lagoon systems along the coast. And then we headed down to the Owancha area and stayed in a natural conservation park. And then lastly, we headed back to San Jose for a few days. Our first day, we went to the El Poas volcano, located in Poas Volcano National Park. It was a little too foggy to see the volcano, but Fred Chambers lectured us on the geomorphology of the volcano and how old it was and what type of volcano it was. And then we headed to the La Paz Waterfall Gardens. It was a large outdoor nature park and wildlife refuge. We were able to see a lot of the biodiversity of Costa Rica that we wouldn't normally see. There was large rooms containing serpents, there was an aviary for birds, there was a monkey house, there's a lot of large jungle cats, and then there was also a butterfly sanctuary. And then we were also to see a large variety of plants as well. And then lastly, the La Paz waterfall. Here's an example of the biodiversity that we saw while we were in La Paz. In the aviary, we were able to hold the toucans. Our last day ended in La Selva Biological Research Station, which is a large plot of land that Leslie Holdridge established because she saw how much the rainforest was being depleted, and so she felt the need to conserve this land. And now it's taken over by the Organization of Tropical Studies, and it's a sanctuary for a lot of biologists around the world to conduct their research, and some of the research has lasted longer than 30 years. So a lot of the activities that we did in La Selva were guided tour hikes by the staff of La Selva. They taught us a lot of really great information about the plants and animals in the forest and their interactions with each other. And we were able to see a lot of wild animals like sloths, howler monkeys, wild pigs, a crocodile, some frogs, insects, and a lot of wild birds. And we went on one daytime hike and one nighttime hike just to get a feel for what the forest is like for both of them. We were also lucky enough to have a personal presentation by the director of La Selva, Carlos de la Rosa. He taught us about the history of La Selva and all the different research projects that have come through, and also the environmental education that they've tried to do with their interactions with the people of Costa Rica and La Selva. And then he also showed us a lot of maps showing the history of deforestation of Costa Rica and the takeover of agriculture and industry. Lastly, we went on a guided tour of the Sarapiquí River. We got to see what an ecotourism job would be like in Costa Rica with the raft guides, and we were also able to see the Costa Ricans' relationships to the river. A few people were fishing along the river, and that's one of the ways that they provide food for their family. And also we were able to see the ecology of the river and how the plants and animals interact with the river. Our next stop was in La Fortuna, where we were able to see the Lake Arenal man-made lake and also the Arenal volcano. But first we stopped at an organic dairy farm called La Finca. It is a family farm run by Don Carlos and his son Rodolfo Carlos, and they gave us a tour of the farm. The father and the son, they told us about the importance of preserving the environment and how it's important for us to think about our actions further into the future and what kind of footprint we want to leave. And they showed us a really good relationship that they had with their cattle and how humanely they're treated and how that really affects the taste of the food. And also they showed us how they recycle a lot of their resources on the farm. Some of the organic farming methods that they showed us that they do on the farm was the separation of manure from solid and liquid waste. And then they would take the solid waste of the manure and blow it in this furnace, and the steam that was powered and generated from the blowing of the manure would head into the factory where they produced the dairy, and they would provide energy for them to run the factory. And then also the rotation of the grazing of the cattle, instead of just letting them overrun all the land, they rotate the areas of grazing every day. And so by the time they reach the original area, it's been about a week and a half, and the grass has been able to grow back. In La Fortuna, we could also see the Arenal volcano really well. It's a pretty young volcano. It's not too much older than 7,000 years old, and it's a stratovolcano. It's a nice, very typical cone shape. And you could see some of the scars that were on the side of the volcano from previous eruptions and the pyroclastic flows. We were also able to participate in a guided tour and take skywalks in La Fortuna, and these were these large bridges that were created by German architects, and the bridges went through the canopy of the forest, and so we were able to see, understand really the 3 different layers of the tropical rainforest and how each layer has different characteristics, and we were able to see a lot of the different plant and animal life at the top of the forest. In La Fortuna, you can also see the man-made lake called Lake Arenal. It was created in 1979 by damming up the lake, and it's caused a lot of environmental issues, but also a lot of positive things to it as well. There's been some soil erosion and sedimentation, and it's, a lot of the deforestation in the area has been caused by people creating pasture for agriculture, and the lake irrigates the agriculture in the area. But at the base of the lake, there is a hydroelectric dam and a wind farm, and the hydroelectric dam provides 30 to 50% of electricity to Costa Rica, which is a really good environmental improvement. For our next stop, we went to Playa Conchal in Brasilito, which was an area along the Pacific coast in Costa Rica, and we discussed a lot of the different types of beaches and the coastal lagoon systems and how they have different characteristics. And then we also were able to see the ecotourism development in Costa Rica, along with the large-scale hotels and the tourists, and how that affects the people of Costa Rica and the environment. And then also we visited some mangrove forests, and Amy Sobol taught us about the importance of them, how they are great for water filtration and absorption of pollution, and also they are a sanctuary for specific forms of wildlife. While we were there, we also visited the Las Baulas National Park, which is a leatherback sea turtle conservation park. It allows for the sea turtles to come and lay their eggs in a serene setting, and it will not be affected by humans because the leatherback sea turtles are endangered. And Dana Davis gave us a lecture on a lot of the threats to the sea turtles, how humans are impacting their life cycles, and also the issues with breeding and their egg-laying complications. With climate change, it's causing the sex of the turtles to change, and so there's been a lot more females than males. And so a lot of the people in the conservation park try to help deal with that issue by burying the eggs deeper into the sand. After Brasilito, we headed to Olancha, and we stayed at the Monte Alto Nature Reserve. It was probably the most rural place that we stayed at while we were in Costa Rica. As you can see, we had to sleep in beds that were covered in mosquito nets. Monte Alto is a nature reserve that has bought a large amount of land and is committed to the conservation of the forest. They realized in 1992 that the forest had gone too far in terms of deforestation, and it had gotten so out of control that 90% of the water in the area had been depleted. And so they felt the need to preserve this sort of land, and now they open it to educational and tourists, and it's really a great place for people to get a feel for the forest, and it's pretty far away from urban areas. While we were in Olancha, we went on a hike on the way to some caves, and our guide Saturino pointed out a lot of the medicinal plants of the forest. His father was a shaman, and he taught him a lot of the really vital information about medicinal plants in the forest, and he uses it to this day to treat his family. And it was really interesting, and he taught us all sorts of different plants that could do different things for weight loss, headaches, pain on your skin, allergies. It was really informal. And then we also stopped at an overlook of the Nicoya Peninsula, where we were kind of able to see from a bird's eye view the land change and all of the land that had been taken, or the forest that had been taken down for pasture. And this particular area stood out to me the most. It looks really deforested, and looks like you can see the scar of the mountain. Our hike ended at the Terciopelo Caves, which were caves that were considered for a long time to be a volcano until a biologist came along and realized that the volcano that the locals were speaking of was actually a cave. And there's actually 2 caves in the area. One is used for tourism, which is the one that we visited, and the other one is used for biological research, and they study a lot of formations of the cave and also bats in the cave. And Saturino, our guide, taught us about the formation and the composition of stalactites and stalagmites. Our last destination was in San Jose. This was a bit of a rough transition because we'd been in the forest for about 3 days, and this is the largest city in Costa Rica. It was also a really beautiful city as well, though. There was a lot of really great old architecture that we were able to see, and you know, it's a really bright city. While we were in San Jose, we visited the National Museum of Costa Rica. It was first founded in 1887 by Bernardo Soto. Since it was created, it's visited 4 different buildings, and the last building, the one that we visited, has housed the museum since 1950. While we were in the museum, we learned about a lot of the indigenous cultures that first inhabited Costa Rica, and it was really cool. We were able to see a lot of their ancient artifacts, including their pottery, jewelry, and this right here on the right is their burial ritual, where they take a pile of bones from the person and bury it along with a lot of treasures like jewelry or certain types of food, and you could tell the status of the person that was buried by the way that they were buried, and I thought that was really interesting. In the National Museum, there's also a 50-year tribute to the Organization of Tropical Studies, which was really great because we had just come from the La Selva Biological Research Station. The room taught us about all the different research stations that are run by OTS and all the different landscapes that they are. Some of them are swamps, some of them are in the dry forest, and La Selva is more in the moist forest. And then there was also a lot of professional photography on the wall, including Carlos de la Rosas, the director of La Selva, so that was very awesome to see. So what I learned from this experience was how important it really is to feel connected to your environment and to have a personal relationship with it in order to conserve it, and to really know what problems there are out there. And if you just live in a city and you never really visit natural settings, you don't know exactly what kind of impact you're having. And then also humans are having a pretty large impact on the environment in negative ways, but there's some really great people out there fighting for it, and it gave me a lot of faith that our future could end up being better than we thought. And also that approaches to sustainable development are different per region, in that one country's approach to their sustainable development issues cannot be applied everywhere around the world, and that every country has different areas that they need to focus on. And it was a really great experience in learning that, and thank you.